Welcome to day two. Welcome everyone to day two of our infrastructure as code journey. Today we're getting hands-on with Terraform, the most widely used tool for infrastructure as code. What I'll be doing in this section or in this lecture, I'll be walking you through what Terraform is, why it's powerful, and how you can create your own first basic configuration to deploy infrastructure. But first, let's just a recap. What is Terraform? From our previous lecture, we understand that it is an open source tool used for infrastructure as code, and it's created by HashiCorp. It lets you define cloud and on-prem infrastructure using a simple human readable language called HCL, which stands for HashiCorp Configuration Language. There are also some key concepts that you need to familiarize yourself with before we dive into the hands-on. Here are some key terms that you will probably hear a lot as we start working with Terraform. First, you have the provider, which is essentially just a cloud service that you will be using to provision or create resources on. Examples would be AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud platform. Those are examples of providers. There's then you'll also hear a resource. This is what the resource that you are creating. This is what you're creating, be it a database, a virtual machine, or a bucket or storage. Any storage, that is what we will refer to as a resource. Then we talk about a configuration file. This is the code that you write. This is just basically everything you put in a code and configure all your resources. So all your resources will be listed there in the minimum function of it. At minimum, you will have a resource in your configuration file. And then you will hear something called a state. Now, state is how Terraform keeps track of what it has to create or it has created. So whatever you put in, you apply using your Terraform template, Terraform remembers it and keeps it in a state file. So understanding at least these four concepts will help you as we move along when we get to creating uh, or provisioning our resources through Terraform. So let's get into the hands-on section. So what we will be doing here is installing Terraform, right? So it's quite easy to install Terraform. It's not difficult. I already have it installed in my on my local, but we will use me upgrading or updating the one that I have as an example of how we can install it on yours. So first you will visit the terraform.io site and download a binary for your OS. So I'm using Windows and I will go and download mm, the AMD 64 version 1.12.2, and after it is downloaded any one of the binaries, then you can come over to downloads and you will see it is downloaded over here. Now what you will do then after it's downloaded, you just need to extract it into a folder in which I'll name Terraform. So here in my C drive, I already have Terraform, a Terraform folder with my existing Terraform. What I will do is I will just uh, send this to a backup. Let's do that so that I don't have to, so I can roll this back. So in DevOps, a rule to note is if you can't do it safely, rather not do it. So I'll send the existing one into a zip file. So yeah, there we go. So then I'll call it Terraform backup, and I will delete this existing one. There we go. So it's backed up. So what then I will do is the one that I have downloaded, I will extract into that folder. I will extract it into the C drive, and it is in that existing Terraform. So this is where we will put it. There we go. We have Terraform now running in that Terraform folder. Now the next step that you have after extracting it, then you need to go and edit your, if you are using Windows, you need to go and edit your environment variable. So what you will do then is essentially just put the path to your Terraform in your environmental
Need
to
variable.
add that C drive path into your path variables, and it will just add it into your environment variable so that it knows when you run it in your CLI where the executable is stored. Okay, you will save that then once you edit it, and then you will have to unfortunately restart your PC so that it takes effect. Right, so mine is already there. So what I'll do now that I've done that, we can check if I run Terraform, um, if it's pointing Terraform, let's see if it's pointing to the new version. Okay, not. Okay, so we're back. We got that fixed. So what you need to do on when you are on Windows, just download the AMD 64 version, and then extract it into your the path where you want your Terraform to live. I have it in C drive. That's my backup. Now that it works, I can actually safely delete this one and then just have my new version 12.12, 1.12. And after you edited your environment variables, then when you say terraform.v, it should give you a good response like that. Okay, that should suffice. Okay, now that we have Terraform running, um, and we have installed it, I will also post the installing instructions, so just in case you get lost. Now we can create our first Terraform script. In our case, we'll use AWS. So for this one, you need to have AWS free tier account, right? So let me just. So I already have AWS. So what I'll do is I will just go to AWS and I will sign into console and I will just log in with my credentials. Okay. Okay, so I've entered my credentials, and now I'm just showing you that I do have my AWS account, and this will typically for me to have to give access to Terraform. I need to have IAM user specifically for Terraform. What you do in AWS, in order to give it access to in order to give Terraform access to AWS, you need to just create some SDK keys, a user first. So I have a user already for Terraform, and this Terraform user will then have whatever access, keep it to least privilege or least all the access that it requires. And then you will have security credentials. Under the security credentials, you have different keys that you create. And I should actually just delete some of them. So I'm going to deactivate this one. I'm going to, yeah, leave that one. Actually, this one I can delete, uh, just so that we are, I am clean. Just gonna delete that one. And that's uh, I'm gonna delete this one as well. So I'm just gonna start on a clean slate here. Hey, so now what I need to do then, I will create the access key. I will say CLI, and I will just hop over that, and one day I'll read that. So this is for Terraform. And I will create the access key, and I will download that file, and I will configure that in my credentials so that Terraform has access to it. Okay. So I have my infrastructure as code folder here, and what we're gonna do, we're just gonna create to
Some
Terraform in the infrastructure as code, just a snippet of it. Okay, so first you need to have you need to structure it in a way where you can manage or organize your folders. So what I will do then, I will first create the folder in here because we are going to create the EC2 instance. Uh, EC2, I'm gonna say EC2, right? And then just for my organization, I'm gonna say this is the first version of it, right? And in that, I will create a main. .tf is the directive or the extension for Terraform. So we will create a main.tf. That is a minimum file that you would need to have so that that's where you configure all the resources that you will have, that you will need. So we can say provider. So we're just gonna specify the provider that we use here. Uh, we're gonna say AWS because we're going to create um, our resources in the cloud. And we're gonna say region. It's equal to EU dash host dash one. That is where we go to our our AWS. That is the region where the resource that we are creating, or any resource that is created within this configuration, that is where they will be deployed to. Right, so here I said is EU West 1. It's Ireland region, this Europe Ireland region, and you can choose any region of your choice, just using the region code there in your provider configuration. After the region, that should be enough. That should be enough. So what we will create then is a resource. We're going to create the AWS EC2 instance. So first give it you will say EC2 instance, resource instance, and I will name it example, right? So that should be sufficient. I think it should actually. Do I have a plugin for Terraform? I do. I do. So it should recognize this. Just a tip, a friendly tip is to install your Terraform plugin, and then it will make it easier for you to just fetch any libraries related to Terraform. Instance type. All right, there we go. So we are going to, so with the AMI, that's basically the image that we are going to use, right? So it's so instead of coming here and you are saying instances and you are clicking launch instance, we are putting it into code. Right, so but I'm just going to fetch a AMI here that we can use for this region. So here we have the AMI for, this is fine. So this is the AMI for Amazon Linux. So it's a free image. It's a free tier image, so you can use that. And you can directly, so we're just gonna hard code it this time. We're not yet at the point where we're using variables. And the instance type, we will call it a T2.micro. Okay, so this just declares the provider and tells us, tells Terraform to launch a EC2 instance into that account. Now, your question at this point should be, how then is Terraform having access to um, that account, right? So you in your provider block, you need to specify profile, right? And this profile, I just specify as default, right? And this tells Terraform, Terraform in my local, I have configured the EC2 profile, right? So this is typically when you run AWS EC2 configure or AWS profile configure, which I will give you the text directive of how to do it. So you'll say, I have configured in my AWS hidden or secrets file, I have configured a profile which I've named default. Right? Now, default, you saying default under what Terraform is going to do, Terraform is going to go to that to the AWS credentials folder. It's going to look for the profile default, and under default, it's going to find your that key, that private key that you have just created. Okay, that will be in the text directive. Here I have sensitive details, so I can't necessarily show you that. But it typically, if I have to show you here, you will run, okay, let's see. Yes, here I will say AWS, not SSA, but AWS configure. Okay, that's wrongly spelled. AWS configure, not SSO, but profile. Did I run it incorrectly? AWS configure. That's just AWS configure. Okay, sorry about that. And it gives you the opportunity to input your access key, and then it will give you the opportunity to input your secret key and then the region, and that will be your profile that you refer as your default, and that will mean that Terraform will now have access to run per the permissions of that user that has that profile keys. It will run and deploy anything. Okay, so I'm just gonna take a moment to populate this. Okay, I've configured it. Now we go in with, now that we know what is in this folder, it is EC2, so we just need to go into the level where your configuration exists so that it does not, it, it finds the configuration, it knows what to execute, right? So after this, we will just initialize our Terraform so that it is able to go and log on. Alright, so we do that by saying init, Terraform init, and it does that successfully. Okay, so that means it knows your backend and it knows your credentials and stuff, and it knows everything that is configured within this main TF folder. And if I run Terraform plan, this is a command that this is just a Terraform command that we run. So Terraform plan will look at your existing state and it will compare it to what you have in your file, in your config file. So what I need to do, it's saying no changes. So what I need to do, you need to first just save. Let me go save, and then it will be able to pick up if you have any changes to your state. Mm, That's inconsistency the in the log file inconsistent but no version is selected. Okay, so it doesn't like that I don't have a version, so I will put that. So how I would prefer to configure that would be to, in this folder, add a versions file where I specifically have a block where I configured the version of my Terraform that I require, and then the version of AWS SDK. You need the SDK, CLI SDK installed, and then it will be able to go and look for that as well. So I have all of these, and I will just save all and let us see if that's also. Actually, I need to initiate this thing. I need to re-init, and it needs to go and say I'm using that HashiCorp AWS, and it's installing the dependencies, and if it's happy, then it will say successful. Okay, it's done that. Now it's saying successfully initialized, and now it is ready to accept a Terraform plan command. So with the plan, it will go and look at my existing state, and then it will look at the file that I have, that the configuration file that I have here. So in the existing state, there's nothing. I have nothing that I've deployed with Terraform at the moment in that account. And now it's saying, okay, I see you are trying to deploy a EC2 instance. So here you go. We're going to use that AMI and everything that will be related to this. Like this is just the EC2 instance. I mean, there's additional configurations like passwords and keys that needs to be added, but this is just example, right? So we're going to, it's saying it's going to add one, and this is everything about that one resource that it's going to add. It's only looking at the resource level, right? And then these are the uh, subsets of the resource that it will be adding. So at the end, it's seeing that it has one resource to add, and that's correct, right? And you have to review this, especially if you're doing like a destroy or anything. So this is it's a good practice to just review that it is doing what you are expecting it to do. So yes, we are happy, and we will say Terraform apply. Okay. Now you see like it has like a TF state that it generates a TF state file. So what you are creating here is stored in the state file. Um, and it will remember it for the duration of the lifetime of your resource that you created. So let's give it a moment to create the EC2 instance. Okay, after 20 seconds, or 26 seconds, it has created. You can just verify it then by going to your instances dashboard in your in your AWS, and here you go. We didn't put a lot of stuff there, but you can see that your it was created less than a minute ago, um, and it's initializing. So yeah, now we have successfully created a EC2 instance using Terraform. Right? We didn't do a lot of configs, but this is as simple as it gets with, applying a resource. So remember we mentioned that Terraform uses a state file to track the current state of the infrastructure. So this is what this state file here is what what lets Terraform know that um, what resources exist. And every time you run plan, it looks at the state file. As you can see, it looks at it and it compares, like those are the configuration. Even if you change like a small thing in your existing resource, this state file has kept everything that you've created so far, and it will go and update and go and say, look at, do a comparison and say, this is going to change and this is what is required and all of those things. There's a lot of things that is happening at the background for Terraform. Um, but one thing that you must critically remember is never manually edit the state file. Just don't touch it at all. You can it's always stored securely and backed up. Don't come through and try and edit it. It will just corrupt it and you will have trouble in a production environment if you do that. Now that we're done, there is a Terraform cleanup command that we can have, and what you do is just say Terraform destroy, yeah, spelled that correctly. Terraform destroy, and this will just go and remove everything that you've created in the state. Everything that is in the state file, it will go and look at it and then go back and just destroy everything. This is a cleanup. This is just a cleanup. Anything that exists. So it's giving me the feedback of what am I requesting to destroy. So I'm gonna destroy this EC2 example instance, and it's just gonna cleanly remove it, and I will have no trouble with that. So I say yes, and this is how you are able to just um, on demand redeploy something that you have configured in code, and then you can destroy it as well. And anytime you want to just build it up again, and it's just as easy as clicking a command. Okay, so we give it a minute to do that, and just like that, it is destroyed. Okay, so you can also just do a stateless, and it will tell you what is um, in this current state, and it shouldn't have any resources. Right, there we go. So when you have something, I forgot to run it before, but when you have something, it will give you all the resources that are deployed with the state. So okay, that is it for the demo of Terraform. So what you can do from here is install your Terraform with the instruction that I've done. Configure your AWS credentials. That's through running AWS configure, and you install your just to remember to create your own free tier account, and then create user credentials for your user, and then you can come and configure your credentials, and then you can write the script, which I will put in a lab directive, and just run init and plan and apply and destroy and try editing, adding some additional configs within the resource. Like what for this one we could have added SSH key, which is a separate file as well pointing to it. So that's something that you can look to and learn. Cool. Um, okay, so in recap, uh, we just a quick recap of what we've learned today. We were able to see what Terraform is and how it works. We were able to learn about the basic syntax and configuration. We were able to see to run the core workflow, which is init, Terraform init, Terraform plan, Terraform apply, and we were able to see how to manage the state and destroy infrastructure. So, thank you for tuning into this section. It was a bit lengthy, but I implore you to go and just try out this basic config, run and play with it. I will include a text directive for the lab. And what you can do is just practice, getting familiar with the Terraform command line interface. And in the next lab, we will expand and build on these foundations that we know now about Terraform. Okay, see you in the next lecture.